Imagine for just a moment that the zombie apocalypse has just suddenly hit the state of Florida. Now envision yourself being stuck in the Sunshine State during this global calamity. Could you survive a zombie outbreak in a state sprawling with theme parks, teeming with bristling beaches, plagued by deadly swamps, drowning in bath salts, and also being the home of the legendary Florida Man? What would be the best and worst locations to survive in? And just how difficult would it be to survive in this crazy state on a scale from 1 to 10? The answer to those questions, and many more, are coming right up in this needlessly detailed thought experiment. With that being said, let's quickly cover some facts about Florida before we delve further into this analysis. The state of Florida is the third most populated state in the United States, with an impressive population total of 23.3 million. As such, the lightning capital of America represents roughly 6.71% of the total U.S. population. This makes Florida relative to North Korea in terms of population size, as North Korea has a population stat of roughly 26.6 million. Now, when it comes to population density, Florida is the seventh most densely populated state in the U.S., with a population density of roughly 422 persons per square mile. This is notably higher than the population densities of both the United States and the global average. Now, the amalgamation of these data points makes Florida prime real estate for a zombie apocalypse. But these figures are actually missing a crucial variable that makes Florida even more populous than it may appear to be. You see, Florida has a large and thriving tourism industry which attracts 130.65 million domestic interstate travelers and 12.35 million foreign visitors, all throughout the year. What this ultimately means is that Florida is always going to have a much larger population than what the official stats report. And this surge of people, brought to the state by tourism, remarkably affects all regions of the state. Central Florida is a magnet due to its many theme parks and tourist traps, while also being a vacation home hub for many Northerners and Canadians. Almost every coastal city and region is also going to bring in countless out-of-state visitors due to Florida's bountiful beaches. And even remote areas tend to attract nature lovers and enthusiasts. When it comes to the Florida State National Guard, the state is home to a deployable force of 10,000 soldiers. The Air Guard itself adds an additional 1,900 airmen and women. As such, Florida does not have nearly enough manpower to properly crush most zombie outbreaks in fiction. But when it comes to gun ownership, Florida is actually pretty decent, with 35.3% of households being estimated to be the home of gun owners. Estimates also suggest that Florida has roughly 70.7 firearms per 100 persons. So attaining guns and ammunition in Florida wouldn't be too difficult. Although inversely, this means competing survivors are also far more likely to be packing heat than they would be in countries like India or Russia. As such, you can consider this fairly positive data point to be a double-edged sword. Now, when we look at Florida's human capital, we see a state which has an estimated average IQ of 98.4, which is well within the range of the global average. And when it comes to practical skills, Florida is home to a ton of farmers, hunters, fishermen and women, outdoorsmen and women, individuals with maritime experience and knowledge, and also loads of medical professionals like doctors, surgeons, and nurses. But in the same light, Florida is home to one of the largest populations of seniors, retirees, and nursing home residents in America, along with being the home of ill-prepared morons, pampered landlords, and fairly useless real estate agents, lawyers, and lost tourists. All things being considered, Florida, at face value, is a mixed bag with regards to zombie survival. But perhaps Florida's infrastructure, topology, ecology, and climate might save Florida from being ranked as a hellhole. The Sunshine State's infrastructure is, surprisingly, very good for a southern state in America. Most structures are designed to survive hurricane-forced winds. Entire road systems and communities are designed with flooding in mind. The power grid is as excellent as one would expect from a first world country, and the same could be said of its water treatment, distribution, and sanitation systems. But there are some issues with the quality of Florida's potable water sources. In fact, the state does struggle with water pollution due to runoff from agriculture, fertilizer use, the use of pesticides, and sewage leaks, which go on to feed harmful algae blooms. This in turn has led to repeated red tide events and toxic blue-green algae outbreaks that have killed aquatic life, harmed numerous people, and even damaged the tourism industry in the state. Now, when it comes to Florida's topology, the state is mostly flat. with a few hilly regions in the northern panhandle and within the I-4 corridor, so traversing the state on solid ground will never be super difficult. Florida also has roughly 1,700 rivers, creeks, and streams, but surprisingly there's only 25 to 30 large rivers. Some of the more notable rivers are the St. Johns River, the Swanee River, and the Hillsborough River. Navigating these bodies of water will keep you relatively safe from zombies and may keep you safe from desperately violent survivors. But you better make sure you're using a sturdy boat, because these rivers are infested with alligators. And the same could be said of the roughly 30,000 lakes in the Sunshine State, most of which are located in central Florida's Polk County, with the Lakeland and Winter Haven area being home to the majority of these lakes. Now, when it comes to notable lakes, the first one which comes to my mind is the gargantuan inland freshwater ocean known as Lake Okeechobee. Then there's also Lake George, which is part of the St. Johns River. And then there's also Lake Kissimmee. Florida also has roughly 9.7 million acres or 15,156 square miles of arable land, a figure which represents 28% of Florida's total landmass. As such, one can reliably sustain a community with agriculture in many regions of the state. Florida's climate also helps greatly with this process, as winter isn't really a thing in Florida. South of the Panhandle, and you get a mostly tropical climate, and directly in the Panhandle, you get a subtropical climate. Now, during the summer, you can expect a metric fuck ton of rain, but you can also expect insane heat and humidity throughout a large portion of the year, making survival a truly grueling experience. Hurricanes are also a real concern, as they regularly hit Florida and cause structures to get damaged or destroyed, while also causing catastrophic inland flooding and devastating storm surges along the coast. And without your trusty weather app, you'll never really know when one of these storms are about to ruin your week. When it comes to wildlife, Florida is basically the Australia of America. Alligators can be found in every damn body of water, including that 2-inch deep puddle of water on the sidewalk. Like, guys, I cannot stress to y'all enough, as a longtime resident of this god-awful state, that no body of fresh water is ever truly safe, because there's always going to be at least one gator in it. These swamp puppies will even murk you at fucking Disney World. And to my shock, the Everglades is even home to the American crocodile, along with the Florida panther. Now, throughout the state, you can find many venomous snakes, wild boars, black bears, plenty of dangerous spiders like the brown recluse spider and black widow, an insane number of mosquitoes, and plenty of marine hazards like jellyfish, stingrays, lionfish, and barracudas. But there's also plenty of wild game like deer and turkeys. I should also add that the state is also teeming with livestock and farming animals. The absolute worst place to survive a zombie apocalypse in Florida is, no doubt, the Everglades. This region may seem alluring at first due to its noticeable lack of population, but it is, in fact, a terrible location to survive. There's just too many swamps, the climate is terrible, there's virtually no arable land, and the region is teeming with hostile wildlife. Surviving out in the Everglades is already difficult during normal times. I can't even begin to imagine just how bad it would be during a zombie apocalypse. Now, if you're going to survive in the Everglades, there's really only one halfway decent place, and that's Everglades City. But I personally wouldn't recommend it. The next set of terrible locations would be any of the major coastal cities in Florida, with Miami being the absolute worst of these cities. These cities are all densely populated and incredibly vulnerable to hurricanes. Even small islands off the coast, like Sanibel Island, Captiva Island, and the Florida Keys, are all terrible because they're often connected to the mainland via a bridge of some sort. They're also incredibly tiny and don't have enough arable land to sustain a large pool of survivors. Even the Spanish forts in St. Augustine are death traps, due to the fact that they're located in large cities, where everyone will be fighting for control over these colonial fortresses. Bastions which can easily be surrounded by zombies or sieged by hostile groups. Now, right under these major coastal cities are the urban centers located in central Florida, with the entire I-4 corridor being the worst. Orlando, Lakeland, Ocala, and the entirety of Hillsborough County are heavily and densely populated. The wildlife reserves and national or state parks in this region are also not ideal for long-term survival, due to their lack of freshwater sources and also due to the fact that they're surrounded by major population centers, hence meaning that everyone and their fat mother will be fleeing to these remote areas. In my ever so humble opinion, there is no better region to survive in than the Apalachicola National Forest. This subtropical region covers roughly 937 square miles and is located up in the least populated region of Florida's northwestern panhandle. There's plenty of lakes dotted throughout the landscape of this national forest, and there's also a few rivers which crisscross through this zombie safe haven. You could literally fit 26 Miamis in this forest and still have room to find some privacy for yourself. So if you can handle the climate and wildlife, you could easily survive out here by fishing, hunting, and even growing crops, with the benefit of likely never encountering a large zombie horde or an aggressive group of survivors. The next best location is an inland island located on Lake George, being the privately owned Hog Island. This island sanctuary has access to the St. Johns River and is also already populated by several high-quality structures and amenities. The surrounding area around this island and lake is also sparsely populated. As such, survival on this island is likely to be a cakewalk compared to the rest of Florida. Then there's the Dry Tortugas National Park, which is home to Fort Jefferson. Getting here wouldn't be easy, but it would provide you with a level of security that no other location in Florida could provide you. A literal fortress where you can grow crops and fish in the pristine waters of the Gulf. Even hurricanes will do nothing to this sturdy structure. And last but not least are the sparsely populated areas around Lake Okeechobee and in Florida's Panhandle. There's plenty of freshwater sources and arable land in both locations. And in the case of the Panhandle, the climate is noticeably better than the rest of Florida. Now, obviously, the type of zombies involved in this hypothetical apocalypse would affect the difficulty of survival in any region. But I'm ranking Florida based on a set of criteria that scales universally to any zombie apocalypse. So, overall, I would personally rank the difficulty of surviving a zombie apocalypse in Florida at a 7 out of 10. The climate isn't all that great, with the risk of heat stroke and heat exhaustion being a real threat throughout most of the year. Hurricanes can easily kill you, and there's also plenty of hostile wildlife capable of game-ending your run. All bodies of fresh water are literally inhabited by alligators. Black bears could randomly murk you. Insects can kill you. And the pesky mosquito can easily spread a zombie pathogen if it bites a living infected human and then goes on to bite an uninfected individual. If and only if the zombie outbreak is viral and if the contagion in question doesn't kill the mosquitoes, of course. Be that as it may, the state has an impressively high population total and is also densely populated on top of that. Now, the abundance of firearms in the state makes Florida a bit easier to survive in than it would have been without the presence of such weaponry, but it also adds additional risks. This is the land of Florida Man, the place where woke apparently goes to die. A solid chunk of people in this state aren't likely to be willing to help you, and may even go as far as trying to forcibly take your shit. No doubt you're going to be doing less community building and more active competing with other survivors in the Sunshine State. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of fucking shitty people in Florida. Southern hospitality is a myth, ladies and gents. Florida is nothing like, say, Minnesota, where empathy and general goodwill is more commonplace, but outdoors survival skills and guns are still abundant. And if you don't believe me, remember guys, there's a reason why the next GTA is being set in an exaggerated parody of this state. Now, if you're not in the Panhandle, escaping Florida is incredibly difficult. The I-4 corridor acts as a great barrier for those attempting to head north from the tip of Florida. And given that Florida is a peninsula, you really have no choice but to head north. Which means most refugees and zombies will likely be headed in the same damn direction instead of spreading out. Now, if you have a boat, your only options are tiny islands in the Caribbean, Cuba, or Mexico, which would be an insane distance from the west coast of Florida. Although making landfall in Texas could be pretty decent depending on which coastline you embark on. People in the Panhandle, however, have it pretty easy, but most Florida residents would have a rough fucking time during a zombie apocalypse. Anyways, if you like this sort of content, please like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell as well, that way you may be notified when I publish a new video. And always remember that you may opine anytime if you feel so inclined, down in the comment section. I'm Captain Gold, and I hope to see you in my next Gold Standard video.